Hello everyone, I decided to do a walkthrough of the Archive and Transfer Files lab. Before we start with the lab, we kind of got to talk about the why. So this lab kind of helps us with two different things, mainly efficiency and data integrity. So for efficiency, it streamlines workflows by ensuring that most recent and accurate versions of the files are available across multiple locations. We're going to be able to reduce manual efforts in maintaining file versions and organization. And in terms of data integrity, we can ensure that critical system files and configurations are consistently updated and they're backed up and we don't lose information. It minimizes the risk of data loss through regular synchronization and backups. So when you can also schedule these commands to happen, so you can manually back up at certain times so you don't lose progress and you can just recover whatever you lost. Alright, we're going to do a little command breakdown before we get started. So for the first one we're going to need is obviously going to be SSH. This is how we're going to use Workstation to connect to the different servers, and that way we're going to be able to access them and use the commands from those command lines on those servers. We're going to be using sudo I, that way we can get to the root user and access root permissions. We're going to use make directory, that we're going to be able to create directories to sync the files into. We're going to be using rsync to sync files from one server onto another. We're going to use the AV modifier. A stands for archive mode, preserves permissions and all the information about the file. -V is verbose mode, that provides detailed output after we put the command so we can see what it's doing. We're also going to be using tar, a couple different modifiers for this one. C is to create a new archive. Z is to compress the archive with gzip. -F specifies the file name for the archive. -T lists the contents of the archive. -X extracts the file from the archive. And then at the very end, we're going to be using ls-l capital R. This is going to create a list of the directories and their contents recursively in a long listing format. This way we're going to be able to verify everything that was synced over, and we're going to be able to make sure that everything transferred over properly. In this lab, we're going to be using the tar command, rsync, and sftp commands to archive and back up the contents of directories. We're going to be synchronizing a remote directory to a local directory. We're going to create an archive of the contents of a synchronized directory. We're going to securely copy an archive to a remote host, and we're going to be extracting the archive. So we're going to go ahead and get into there, and I'm going to be showing you guys exactly what I see, so we'll be able to walk through it. Alright, so we've just built the lab environment, and then we opened up the workstation and started the lab archive review. First steps of the lab are pretty basic. First thing we're going to do is SSH into student at server B. Then we're going to switch over to the root user using sudo-I, and then we just put in the normal password given. We then need to create the directory to store the synchronized files. This one's going to be called config sync. Now we're going to use the rsync command. We're going to add the -AV that we stated earlier. We're going to use that to copy the etc directory from server A onto server B. They now want us to create a gzip compressed archive of /config sync. So we're going to create that. We're going to use the czf modifier. So we're going to create new archive. We're going to compress it with gzip. Then we're going to specify the file name. So now they want us to verify the contents of the archive, so we're going to use tar-tzf. T is just so we can be able to view what's inside of it. So you should get a full list of files once you put in that command. That's going to be all the files that we synced over from the other server. Then we're going to securely copy the archive from server B to workstation. We're going to be using SFTP to be doing this. we're going to be using the command put. We're going to put config file backup server a tar.gz. Alright, for the final command to exit SFTP, we're going to put bye, B-Y-E. Then we're going to have to create the tmp / saved config directory. So we're going to create that. Then we're going to have to access into it using cd. So we're going to be using ls-l capital R. That way we're going to be able to view the contents of the archive we just extracted. And then you should see an output as seen here on the screen, and then the lab is all complete. So we're going to kind of circle back around. We're going to go over what we learned during this lab. For the first step, we logged into the remote servers, pretty basic there. We created the directories for organization, and that way we can maintain consistency across multiple devices and computers and servers. We synchronized files between those servers. We archived and compressed those directories using the gzip format specifically for this lab. We transferred the files securely using all the different commands using tar and the different modifiers. Then we extracted and verified the contents of those archives using the different modifiers. Like for tar, we used T in order to view all the contents of it. And then we also use the ls-l capital R command in order to verify the final output of our extraction. So now we're going to go over kind of why this lab was in this class in the first place. The main use is going to be the practical applications you can use for this. It's a pretty basic lab, pretty early on as well. Managing files and synchronizing them is a pretty basic function of Linux. And more specifically, we're going to be able to regularly synchronize and back up critical configuration files. We can ensure quick recovery in case of system failures or data loss. We can ensure all systems are up to date with the latest versions. Main way to do this is using the synchronize. You can synchronize from a device has the latest version. You can automate the deployment of applications and configurations to multiple servers. You can use SFTP and rsync for secure and efficient file transfers. The most important part about this is going to be your implementation and how you're going to put these practices in real-world scenarios. The main thing for me, I like to do project-based learning, so I'll create a project where I know that I have to use, say, file transfers or synchronizing files as one of the steps, and then go through the whole process, and then once I get to that point, kind of try to figure it out, use whatever resources necessary to figure out whatever problems I have. I can either look up documentation or specific command modifiers. That way I don't miss out on syntax and that sort of stuff. But once you have kind of the general overall framework, it's much easier to understand kind of the more nitty-gritty specifics. So that's going to be it for the overview of the Synchronizing Files and Managing Files lab. If you have any questions, please just let me know in the presentation feedback, and I'll get back to you with whatever answers I have. And I appreciate you guys for watching.